The rickety fishing boat rocked gently against the dock, its weathered planks telling stories of countless voyages. But the young woman standing on its deck wasn't fishing for sport or even simple sustenance. She was fishing for survival for 7 hungry children who depended on her daily catch. In the early morning mist, Abigail Morgan's swollen belly strained against her faded jacket as she checked her fishing lines one last time, her wedding ring catching the first light of dawn. The photograph tucked in her pocket showed 7 smiling faces, none related by blood, but all bound by love to the young widow who had promised to keep them safe, no matter the cost. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The summer sun beat down mercilessly on Lake Willow's choppy surface as Abigail Morgan cast her line into the water for the 10th time that morning. Her shoulders ached from the repetitive motion, but she couldn't stop not when the morning's catch had been so meager. 3 small bass wouldn't feed 7 growing children and a baby on the way. At 8 months pregnant, she shouldn't have been out on the water at all, but necessity made such concerns seem like luxuries she couldn't afford. "Just one more good catch," she whispered, wiping sweat from her brow with the back of her hand. "That's all we need today." Behind her, the small town of Pinecrest nestled against the mountains, unaware of the daily struggle taking place on its lake. Abigail had once been part of that community, the beloved schoolteacher married to the town's young deputy sheriff. But Ryan's sudden death in the line of duty 14 months ago had changed everything. The sympathy meals had stopped coming after a month. The concerned visits dwindled soon after. And the pregnant widow found herself increasingly alone with a promise she'd made to her husband that now seemed impossible to keep. "We'll take them in," Ryan had said 6 weeks before his death, after learning about the 7 siblings about to be separated by the foster system. "No child should grow up without family. We can be that family, Abby." Now as her fishing line hung motionless in the water, Abigail wondered how she'd become so isolated. The truth was painful but simple. She'd withdrawn from a town that reminded her too much of Ryan, focusing entirely on the children who needed her. The oldest, Lily, was just 15 and trying desperately to be the second adult in a house that needed one. 10-year-old twins Jason and James were increasingly withdrawn, their grief for their biological parents now compounded by worry for their new family's future. 8-year-old Sophie had stopped speaking entirely for 3 months after coming to live with them. 6-year-old Ethan still wet the bed most nights, and the youngest 5-year-old Mia and 4-year-old Noah still asked when they could go back to their real home. A sudden tug on her line snapped Abigail from her thoughts. Something big had taken the bait. Her heart raced as she began the careful dance of reeling in what might be the day's saving grace. The fishing rod bent dangerously as she struggled, her pregnant belly making the simple task exponentially more difficult. "Come on," she urged, fighting to maintain her balance on the rocking boat. "Please." The fish broke the surface, a large trout that would feed them all tonight. As she carefully guided it toward the boat, the line suddenly went slack. The fish was gone, taking her last good hook with it. Abigail sank to the seat of her small boat, unexpected tears springing to her eyes. It wasn't just about the lost fish, it was everything. The past due notice from the bank that had arrived yesterday, threatening foreclosure on the modest house she and Ryan had bought with such hope, the electricity bill she couldn't pay, the pregnancy complications her doctor had warned about if she didn't rest more, the growing children who needed more than just fish and the vegetables from their small garden. She brushed the tears away angrily. Crying wouldn't feed anyone. "Rough day on the water?" The deep voice startled her. A man stood on the dock beside her boat, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing jeans and a button-down shirt that looked far too expensive for fishing. His cowboy hat shaded eyes that watched her with curious intensity. "I'm fine," Abigail said automatically, embarrassed to be caught in a moment of weakness. "Didn't ask if you were fine," the stranger said, his voice carrying a hint of amusement. Asked if you were having a rough day fishing. Seems like the answer's yes. Abigail sighed, too tired to maintain her usual guard. Lost my biggest catch of the day and my last good hook. The man nodded thoughtfully. Got some spare tackle in my truck. Don't mind sharing if you'd like. Abigail's pride warred with necessity. The children needed to eat. That's kind. But I need to head in anyway. Been out too long already. As if to emphasize her point, the baby kicked hard, making her wince. The man's eyes flickered to her belly, then back to her face, his expression unreadable. Let me help you dock at least, he offered, reaching for the rope she'd tossed haphazardly onto the wooden planks. Too exhausted to refuse, Abigail nodded. The stranger tied her boat with the practiced ease of someone who'd spent time on the water, then offered his hand to help her onto the dock. She hesitated only briefly before accepting, her legs wobbly after hours in the rocking boat. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Thank you, she said, already turning to gather her meager catch. Nathan Wade, the man said, not moving from his spot, new owner of Silvercrest Ranch. Abigail froze. Everyone in Pinecrest had been talking about the mysterious businessman who'd bought the largest cattle ranch in the county, 20,000 acres of prime grazing land that had fallen into disrepair after old Mr. Harrington passed away. Rumors about the new owner had spread like wildfire through town. Some said he was a tech millionaire looking for a quiet place to retire. Others whispered he was running from something, the law, a failed marriage, or worse. Abigail Morgan, she replied, not offering more information than necessary. You always fish alone, Mrs. Morgan? Nathan asked, the title making it clear he'd noticed her wedding ring. Yes. Her tone discouraged further questions, but Nathan Wade didn't seem deterred. And do you always fish for 7 children while 8 months pregnant? Abigail's head snapped up, surprise and suspicion crossing her face. How did you? Small towns talk, Nathan said simply. And I make it my business to know what's happening in my community. We're not your charity case, Abigail said, her voice sharpening as she gathered her things. I appreciate the help with the boat, but we're managing just fine. Nathan raised an eyebrow, looking pointedly at her 3 small fish. Of course you are. Before she could form a retort, he continued, I'm looking for someone to manage the lake on my property. It's stocked with bass, trout, and catfish. Previous owner let it go to waste. I need someone who knows fishing, someone who respects the water and what it provides. Abigail stared at him, confused by the sudden change in topic. What does that have to do with me? Job comes with access to all the fish you can catch, plus a salary. Nathan's expression remained casual, as though he weren't offering her a lifeline in the form of a job she hadn't applied for. Thought you might be interested. Suspicion bloomed anew. Why would you offer me a job? You don't know me. I know you're out here every morning at dawn. I know you fish to feed those kids, not for sport. I know you're putting their needs before your own. He gestured to her pregnant belly. That tells me plenty about your character, Mrs. Morgan. Abigail shifted uncomfortably under his direct gaze. There was something unsettling about how much this stranger seemed to know about her life. I appreciate the offer, Mr. Wade, but I need to get these fish home. The children will be waiting. Nathan nodded, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a business card. Think about it. Ranch needs good people who understand what it means to care for something bigger than themselves. Abigail took the card reflexively, tucking it into her jacket pocket without looking at it. With a final nod of thanks, she gathered her fishing gear and began the walk back to her truck, feeling Nathan Wade's eyes on her back the entire way. The small blue house at the end of Pine Street had once been a source of pride for Abigail. And Ryan, They'd scraped together every penny for the down payment, painted each room themselves, and planted the garden that now provided much of their food. Today, its peeling paint and sagging porch steps seemed to embody Abigail's exhaustion. As she pulled into the driveway, 7 faces appeared at various windows, their expressions brightening at her return. No matter how tired she was, that sight never failed to warm her heart. "Did you catch anything good?" Lily asked, meeting her at the door. At 15, the oldest had taken on responsibilities no teenager should have to bear, becoming Abigail's right hand in caring for the younger children. 3 base, Abigail said, trying to keep the disappointment from her voice. "But they're a decent size. We'll make them stretch." Lily's face fell slightly before she forced a smile. "That's great. I've got rice cooking, and there are still some vegetables from yesterday." Inside, chaos reigned in the form of 7 children in various states of activity. $40,000 a year, plus full use of the lake for your personal fishing. There's also a cabin by the water, 2 bedrooms, recently renovated. It would be yours as part of the compensation package. Abigail nearly choked on her water. $40,000 for managing a lake? Is that not enough? Nathan asked, seemingly genuinely concerned. "I can go higher if—" "No, I mean, that's very generous," Abigail stammered. "But it seems excessive for what you're describing." Nathan shrugged. "I pay what a job is worth to me. Having that lake properly managed is worth at least that." Abigail's mind raced. $40,000 would solve all their immediate financial problems. They could catch up on the mortgage, pay off the medical bills, buy proper food and clothes for the children. But there had to be a catch. No one paid that kind of money for such a simple job. "And what about my children?" she asked cautiously. "There are 7 of them, Mr. Wade, and soon to be 8. She rested a protective hand on her belly. "The cabin has 2 bedrooms, as I mentioned," Nathan said. "Might be a bit tight for your family. But there's a larger house, the old foreman's house, about half a mile from the main ranch house. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Needs some work, but it's solid. That could be arranged instead, if you'd prefer." Abigail stared at him. "Why are you doing this?" "Doing what?" "Offering me a job that pays far more than it's worth. Offering a house for my family." "You don't know me, Mr. Wade. We met yesterday. This doesn't make sense." Nathan was quiet, for a moment, studying her with an intensity that made Abigail want to look away. But she held his gaze, determined to understand his motives. "My father was a fisherman," he finally said. "Not for sport, for survival, like you. He'd take me out on Lake Michigan before dawn, tell me which fish to keep and which to throw back. Taught me everything important about life from that little boat." His voice softened with memory. "When he died, I was 11. My mother couldn't cope. I ended up in foster care. 7 different homes in 6 years. Understanding began to dawn on Abigail. The 7 children I'm raising, they were going to be separated," Nathan said. "I heard about it in town. Heard about the young deputy and his wife who stepped in, kept them together. Then heard the deputy died, leaving his pregnant wife to raise them alone." He shook his head slightly. "Some stories hit closer to home than others, Mrs. Morgan." Abigail absorbed this information, trying to reconcile the successful rancher before her with the foster child he described. "I'm not offering charity," Nathan continued, seeming to read her thoughts. "I genuinely need someone to manage that lake. The salary is fair for the expertise required. The housing is a standard benefit for ranch employees. I'm offering you a job, not a handout." Abigail wanted to believe him. The practical part of her, the part that lay awake at night wondering how to feed 7 growing children, wanted to accept his offer immediately. But experience had taught her that things that seemed too good to be true usually were. "I'd need to see the lake," she said finally, "and the house, before I can decide." Nathan nodded, seemingly pleased with this response. Of course. We can. Do that now, if you have time. 20 minutes later, Abigail stood at the edge of what could only be described as a fisherman's paradise. The lake was larger than she'd expected, its clear blue water reflecting the surrounding pines and distant mountains. A small dock extended into the water, with a boathouse nearby that looked recently refurbished. Previous owners stocked it with bass, trout, and catfish, Nathan explained as they walked along the shore. But there's been no proper management for years. No idea what the current population is like or what the water quality's doing. Abigail knelt awkwardly at the water's edge, dipping her fingers into the cool surface. The clarity is good. That's promising. You know about water quality assessment? My degree was in environmental science before I switched to education, Abigail said, surprising herself by sharing this detail. I took several courses on aquatic ecosystems. Nathan's eyebrows rose slightly. You're full of surprises, Mrs. Morgan. Abigail, she corrected automatically. If we're going to work together, you might as well use my first name. Abigail, Nathan repeated, and I'm Nathan. A comfortable silence fell between them as they continued around the lake. Abigail's mind was already cataloging the work that would need to be done: water testing, population sampling, perhaps introducing some aquatic plants to improve the ecosystem. Despite herself, she was getting excited about the possibilities. And here's the cabin, Nathan said as they rounded a bend in the shoreline. What he described as a cabin was in fact a charming two-story structure with a wide porch overlooking the water. Like everything else at Silvercrest, it was well maintained, with fresh paint and window boxes filled with colorful flowers. It's beautiful, Abigail admitted. But as you said, too small for my family. Let's look at the foreman's house then, Nathan suggested. They drove in his truck across the property, past grazing cattle and fields of alfalfa shimmering in the summer heat. The foreman's house sat on a gentle rise, surrounded by old oak trees that provided welcome shade. It was larger than the cabin, with a wraparound porch and a yard that would be perfect for children to play in. Inside, the house needed work, as Nathan had mentioned: outdated kitchen, worn carpets, walls that needed fresh paint, but the bones were good. 3 bedrooms upstairs, a large living room, a country kitchen with space for a big table. Abigail could already imagine the children here, running through the rooms, having space to grow. It needs some updating, Nathan acknowledged as they toured the house, but that could be arranged before you move in. New appliances, fresh paint, maybe hardwood floors instead of this carpet. Abigail ran her hand along a windowsill, her mind racing. It was perfect, too perfect. The job, the house, all of it seeming to appear exactly when she needed it most. Why aren't you married? The question escaped before she could stop it, immediately making her cheeks burn with embarrassment. I'm sorry, that's none of my business. But Nathan didn't seem offended. I was, for 6 years. It ended badly. His expression closed slightly. She wanted the lifestyle my money could provide, not the man who provided it. Abigail nodded, understanding more than she wanted to admit. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a valuable lesson. Nathan's tone made it clear the subject was closed. So what do you think? About the job, the house? Abigail looked around the spacious living room, imagining it filled with children's laughter instead of emptiness. Then she thought of her small blue house in town, filled with memories of Ryan. The practical choice was clear, but her heart ached at the thought of leaving the home they'd made together. I need to talk to the children, she said finally. This affects all of us. Of course, Nathan agreed. Take your time. The offer stands. As he drove her back to her truck, Abigail found herself studying Nathan Wade more carefully. Beneath the wealth and the imposing presence was a complexity she hadn't expected. The foster child who'd made good. The successful businessman who noticed a struggling widow fishing at dawn. the divorced man living alone in a house too big for one person. "Thank you," she said as they reached her truck. "For the opportunity, for not making it feel like charity." Nathan nodded, his expression unreadable. "Thank you for considering it. Not many people would take on 7 children that weren't theirs. That says something about your character, Abigail Morgan." As she drove home, Abigail's mind was a whirlwind of possibilities. The job would solve their financial problems. The house would give the children space they desperately needed. But accepting meant leaving behind the last physical connection to Ryan, the home they'd created together, the garden they'd planted, the porch swing where they'd dreamed about their future. The children were waiting when she returned, their faces anxious. They'd known she was meeting about a job, and Abigail realized with a pang how aware they were of their precarious situation. Even the youngest seemed to understand that something important was happening. "Well?" Lily asked as soon as Abigail walked through the door. "What did he say?" Abigail gathered them all in the living room, explaining the job offer as simply as she could. She described the lake, the ranch, and most importantly, the house that could be theirs. She watched their faces carefully as she spoke, looking for signs of resistance or fear. "Would we have to change schools?" Jason asked, voicing the practical concern that would matter most to the twins. "Yes," Abigail admitted. "You'd go to the school in Millfield. It's about 15 minutes from the ranch." "What about our stuff?" Sophie asked quietly. "Would we take our things?" "Of course," Abigail assured her. "All your special things would come with us. Is there a garden?" Mia wanted to know. At 5, her main concern was the tomato plants she'd been helping tend. "There could be," Abigail said. "There's plenty of space for one." The questions continued, some practical, some heartbreakingly revealing of the insecurities that plagued children who'd already lost one home. When they'd all had their say, Abigail asked the question that mattered most. "How would you feel about moving, about leaving this house?" The children exchanged glances, having one of those silent conversations that siblings develop. Finally, Lily spoke for the group. "We don't care where we live, Miss Abby," she said simply. "We just want to stay together, with you. And if this job helps you not worry so much, that's good," James added with surprising insight. "We know you're worried all the time." Abigail felt tears threatening. These children, who had lost so much already, were worried about her worrying about them. The circular concern was almost too much to bear. "I just want what's best for all of you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "What your dad and I promised to keep you together, to give you a good life. Dad would want us to be okay." Lily said quietly, "He wouldn't care about the house. He'd care about us being safe and together." The wisdom in the teenager's words struck Abigail forcefully. Ryan wouldn't care about the physical house. He'd care about his family, the children he'd chosen to protect, the baby who would never know him, the wife he'd left behind. He'd want them to be secure, to have enough food, to not live under the constant threat of foreclosure. That night, after calling Nathan to accept the position, Abigail sat on the porch swing one last time. They wouldn't move immediately. Nathan had insisted on completing the renovations to the foreman's house first, but the decision was made. A new chapter was beginning, one she hadn't anticipated or sought out. "I hope I'm doing the right thing," she whispered to the night sky, to Ryan's memory. "I hope you understand." The baby kicked in response, a strong movement that made Abigail smile despite her tears. Life persisted. It changed, evolved, found new paths forward even when the old ones were blocked. Perhaps that was the greatest lesson Ryan had left her, that love didn't end with loss. It transformed, found new expressions, new people to embrace. With that thought warming her heart, Abigail Morgan finally allowed herself to hope that tomorrow might be easier than today. The moving day arrived 3 weeks later on a crisp September morning that hinted at the coming fall. Abigail stood In the empty living room of the small blue house, her hand resting on her swollen belly as she took one final look around. The walls were bare now, the family photos and children's artwork carefully packed away. Only the ghost of memories remained. Ryan spinning her around the room when they'd first bought the house. The Christmas morning when they'd welcomed the 7 siblings, the quiet evenings on the porch swing planning their future. Before we dive back into the story, tell us where you're tuning in from. If this journey touches your heart, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow's episode reveals a twist that will leave you speechless. Miss Abby? Lily's voice broke through her thoughts. The 15-year-old stood in the doorway, concern evident in her eyes. The last box is loaded. Nathan's waiting. Abigail nodded, blinking back tears. I'm coming, just saying goodbye. Lily crossed the room and slipped her hand into Abigail's. Dad's not in these walls, you know. He's coming with us. The simple wisdom in the teenager's words squeezed Abigail's heart. When did you get so smart? Learned from you, Lily said with a small smile. Come on. The little ones are getting antsy. Outside, Nathan Wade leaned against his truck, deep in conversation with the twins about fishing lures. He'd arrived early that morning with 2 additional trucks and several ranch hands to help with the move, insisting that Abigail shouldn't be lifting anything in her condition. Over the past 3 weeks, he'd overseen the renovation of the Foreman's house with surprising attention to detail, seeking Abigail's input on everything from paint colors to kitchen appliances. All set? He asked as Abigail emerged from the house, keys clutched tightly in her hand. Yes, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. We're ready. Nathan's eyes held understanding as he took in her expression. Take your time. Moving's never easy, especially from a home with memories. Thank you, Abigail said, grateful for his perception, for everything. The job, the house, the help today. You're doing me a favor, Nathan replied, the response he always gave when she tried to thank him. That lake needs someone who understands it. It had become a familiar exchange between them, her gratitude met with his insistence that their arrangement was mutually beneficial. Sometimes Abigail almost believed him, especially after spending time at the lake assessing its needs. The water quality issues were real, the fish population imbalanced. There was genuine work to be done, work she was qualified to do. But it didn't fully explain the generosity, the consideration, the careful way Nathan had integrated himself into their lives without overstepping. The drive to Silvercrest Ranch took 40 minutes, the small caravan of vehicles winding through countryside that transitioned from town to farmland, to the vast grazing pastures of the ranch itself. Abigail drove her own truck with Lily beside her. The younger children divided between Nathan's vehicle and the ranch hands' trucks. When they turned onto the long driveway leading to the ranch, Abigail felt a curious mixture of anxiety and hope flutter in her chest. The foreman's house appeared around a bend in the road, and Abigail caught her breath. The transformation was remarkable. The tired structure she'd toured weeks earlier now stood freshly painted in warm cream with forest green trim. The wraparound porch gleamed with new wood, adorned with rocking chairs and hanging plants. The yard had been landscaped with simple, hardy plants that would require minimal maintenance. It's beautiful, Lily whispered beside her. As they pulled up to the house, the front door opened and Carmen Alvarez stepped out. The ranch's housekeeper had been introduced to Abigail during one of her visits to finalize details about the job. The older woman's warm smile and no-nonsense attitude had immediately put Abigail at ease. Welcome home, Carmen called, descending the porch steps with surprising agility for a woman in her 60s. Children inside have been helping me prepare a proper welcome. Children? Abigail questioned, confusion clouding her face as she carefully maneuvered out of the truck. Carmen's smile widened. Come see. Inside, the house smelled of fresh paint, new wood, and something deliciously savory cooking in the kitchen. But it was the handmade banner stretched across the living room that brought tears to Abigail's eyes. "Welcome home, Morgan family," painted in childish handwriting, decorated with handprints of various sizes. The ranch hand's children helped. Carmen explained, gesturing to 3 children who stood shyly by the staircase. "Thought your little ones might like to know they have friends nearby." The thoughtfulness of the gesture overwhelmed Abigail. As her own children tumbled into the house, exclaiming over the newly renovated space, the ice of anxiety that had gripped her heart began to thaw. Maybe this could work. Maybe this could become home. Nathan appeared in the doorway, carrying 2 boxes labeled "Kitchen" in Abigail's handwriting. "Where would you like these?" "I'll show you," Carmen said, leading him toward the back of the house. For the next several hours, organized chaos reigned as boxes were unloaded, furniture arranged, and beds assembled. Nathan's ranch hands worked efficiently, directed by Carmen, who seemed to have an innate sense of where everything should go. The children explored their new home with growing excitement, claiming bedrooms and closet space with the seriousness of diplomats negotiating treaties. By late afternoon, the trucks were empty and the essential rooms set up. Abigail stood in the kitchen, unpacking dishes while Carmen stirred something that smelled heavenly on the new stove. "You must be exhausted," Carmen said, glancing at Abigail's pregnant belly. Sit. Baby needs rest and so do you." Too tired to argue, Abigail sank onto one of the kitchen chairs. The baby had been unusually active all day, as if sensing the upheaval in their lives. "Nathan said the baby comes next month?" Carmen asked, ladling stew into a bowl and setting it before Abigail. 3 weeks, Abigail confirmed, suddenly, aware of how hungry she was as the aroma of beef stew reached her, though the doctor thinks it might be sooner. Carmen nodded sagely. "Babies come when they're ready, not when doctors say. My 6 all came early, strong-willed from the beginning." "You have 6 children?" Abigail asked, surprised. 6 children, 14 grandchildren, 2 great-grandchildren, Carmen said proudly. "Family is everything." "How long have you worked at Silvercrest?" 28 years. "Started when old Mr. Harrington owned the place. Stayed on when Nathan bought it last year." Carmen's expression softened. "He's a good man. Quiet, keeps to himself mostly, but good, generous." Abigail hesitated, then asked the question that had been nagging at her. "Why is he doing all this?" "For us, I mean. The job, the house, everything." Carmen was quiet for a moment, thoughtfully stirring the stew. "Nathan had a hard childhood. Foster care isn't kind to sensitive boys. When he sees someone struggling to keep a family together," she shrugged. "Some wounds heal, but they leave scars that remind us of what matters." Before Abigail could probe further, the kitchen door swung open and Nathan entered, followed by the younger children who'd been helping him unpack their toys in the living room. "Miss Abby," Noah exclaimed, rushing to her side. "Nathan says there's horses we can ride, real ones." "When you're bigger," Nathan qualified with a smile. "For now, maybe just petting them." The disappointment on Noah's face was comical. "But I'm already 4.5. "Then maybe in another 4.5 years, Nathan suggested, ruffling the boy's hair. "Safety first, buddy." Abigail watched the exchange with interest. Nathan seemed completely at ease with the children, responding to their endless questions with patience and genuine attention. There was none of the awkwardness she'd observed in other adults encountering 7 boisterous children for the first time. As evening settled over the ranch, Carmen served her stew to the entire household, including Nathan, who stayed to help with final arrangements. The dining room table, larger than any Abigail had ever owned, comfortably seated all 9 of them, with room to spare for the baby's high chair when the time came. "This is the best dinner ever," James declared, reaching for a second helping. "Better than fish?" Nathan asked with a hint of teasing in his voice. "Way better," Jason confirmed seriously. "No bones." Laughter rippled around the table, And Abigail felt something inside her release. These children who had been through so much, losing their birth parents, moving in with her and Ryan, losing Ryan, facing potential separation, were resilient in ways that humbled her. They adapted, found joy in simple pleasures, moved forward without forgetting the past. After dinner, when the younger children were settling into their new bedrooms, and Lily was helping Carmen with the dishes, Nathan invited Abigail to step outside onto the porch. "How are you feeling?" he asked as they settled into the rocking chairs overlooking the darkening pastures. Truthfully, Abigail considered the question seriously. "Overwhelmed, grateful, scared, hopeful." She smiled slightly. "Is that truthful?" "Enough?" Nathan's answering smile was warm. "More than enough." "It's strange," Abigail continued, rocking gently. "I feel like I should be sadder about leaving our old house, Ryan's house. But seeing the children here, with space to run and proper bedrooms and enough food." She trailed off, emotion tightening her throat. "You haven't forgotten him," Nathan said quietly. "You've just made room for the living to thrive. That's what good parents do." The simple validation brought tears to her eyes. "I keep wondering if I'm doing the right thing. For them, for the baby. From what I've seen, you've done nothing but the right thing since the day you and your husband decided to keep those 7 kids together." Nathan's voice carried absolute conviction. "The rest is just logistics." They sat in companionable silence as twilight deepened into night. The vastness of Silvercrest spread before them, peaceful in a way the town could never be. In the distance, cattle lowed softly as they settled for the night. The scent of pine and grass filled the air. "I should head back to the main house," Nathan said eventually, rising from his chair. "Let you all get some rest. Tomorrow's your first official day as lake manager." "I haven't forgotten," Abigail assured him. 8 a.m. at the lake. "Make it 9, Nathan amended. "You've got enough on your plate with the move." After he left, Abigail remained on the porch, absorbing the peacefulness of her new surroundings. For the first time in months, the constant knot of anxiety in her chest had loosened. The children were safe. They had a roof over their heads, food in the pantry, and the promise of stability. It wasn't the life she and Ryan had planned, but perhaps it could still be a good one. Her first week as Silvercrest's lake manager passed in a blur of activity. The lake needed significant work. Water testing revealed potential pH issues. Fish population sampling showed an imbalance of predator to prey species, and the shoreline required restoration in several areas. Abigail threw herself into the job with an enthusiasm that surprised even her, grateful to be using her environmental science background after years away from the field. The children settled into their new home with the adaptability of youth. The twins discovered a tree perfect for climbing near the house. Sophie found a sun-dappled reading nook on the porch. Ethan, who had wet the bed nearly every night in their old house, stayed dry for 5 consecutive nights, a record that made Abigail's heart soar with hope for his healing. Little Mia and Noah became Carmen's shadows, helping with baking and laundry with more enthusiasm than skill. Only Lily seemed to struggle with the transition, withdrawing into uncharacteristic silence as the days passed. Abigail found the teenager sitting alone on the porch late one evening, staring out at the starlit pastures with an expression that made her look far older than 15. "Can't sleep?" Abigail asked, lowering herself carefully onto the porch swing beside Lily. Lily shook her head, not meeting Abigail's eyes. "Just thinking." "About what?" The teenager was quiet for so long that Abigail thought she might not answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Do you think we'll stay here?" The question carried more weight than its simple words suggested. Abigail heard the real fear beneath it, the fear of another loss, another displacement, another broken promise. "Yes," Abigail said firmly. "This is our home now, Lily. We're not going anywhere." "But what if—" Lily hesitated. "What If Nathan changes his mind? What if he decides he doesn't want us here anymore? What if you can't do the job because of the baby? The cascade of worries tumbled out, revealing the anxieties Lily had been carrying silently. Abigail reached for the girl's hand, squeezing it gently. "Lily, look at me," she said, waiting until the teenager reluctantly met her gaze. "I have a legal contract for this job. We have a legal agreement for this house. Nathan can't just change his mind, and even if he wanted to, he's not that kind of person." "You don't know that," Lily argued. "You barely know him." "I'm a pretty good judge of character," Abigail countered. "And Carmen's known him for years. She vouches for him." Lily looked unconvinced. Adults lie all the time. They make promises they don't keep. The bitterness in her voice made Abigail's heart ache. Lily had experienced too many broken promises. In her young life, parents who'd promised to get clean and never did. Social workers who'd promised to keep the siblings together, then attempted to separate them. A system that promised protection, but often delivered the opposite. "Not all adults," Abigail said gently. "Your dad never broke a promise to you, did he?" Lily's eyes filled with tears. "No. And I won't either," Abigail continued. "I promised you we'd stay together, and we will. This job, this house, they're just the means to keep that promise." "But the baby's coming soon," Lily persisted. "You can't work and take care of a newborn and all of us." Abigail sighed, acknowledging the valid concern. "That's going to be challenging," she admitted. "But Nathan's already discussed hiring a temporary assistant for the lake management until I'm ready to return full-time. And Carmen's offered to help with the baby and the younger kids. So we're dependent on their charity," Lily said, the word charity loaded with resentment. "No," Abigail said firmly. "We're building a community. There's a difference. In a community, people help each other through difficult times. That's not charity, it's humanity." Lily considered this, her brow furrowed in thought. "Like when? You and Dad took us in? Was that building community?" "Exactly like that," Abigail confirmed. "Your dad and I needed you as much as you needed us. We had love to give, a home to share. You all filled a space in our hearts we didn't even know was empty." The teenager was quiet again, processing this perspective. When she spoke next, her voice was softer, less defensive. "I miss him. Dad, I mean. Sometimes I forget what his voice sounded like." Abigail wrapped an arm around Lily's shoulders, pulling her close. "I know, sweetheart. I miss him too. But you know what helps me? Remembering that part of him lives on in each of you. The way Jason tells jokes, that's pure Ryan. The way you stand up for your siblings, he did the same thing for his fellow deputies. And the baby will have his DNA," Lily added, reaching out to touch Abigail's rounded belly. "A biological connection we don't have." The hint of insecurity in her voice made Abigail's maternal instinct flare protectively. "Lily Morgan, listen. To me, DNA doesn't make a family. Love does. Commitment does. Daily choice does. You and your siblings are my children in every way that matters. This baby won't change that." As if in agreement, the baby kicked strongly against Lily's hand, making the teenager's eyes widen in surprise and delight. "Wow," she breathed. "That was a big one." "Tell me about it," Abigail laughed. "This little one's going to be a soccer player, I think." The moment of connection seemed to ease something in Lily. She leaned her head against Abigail's shoulder, relaxing in a way she hadn't since before the move. "Thanks, Miss Abby," she said quietly, "for everything." "Thank you," Abigail replied, pressing a kiss to the top of Lily's head, "for being the amazing young woman you are." The following morning, Abigail arrived at the lake to find Nathan. Already there, examining the fishing equipment she'd set up for population sampling. "Morning," he called as she approached. "Impressive setup." "Thanks," Abigail said, slightly breathless from the walk. At 8.5 months pregnant, Even short distances were becoming challenging. I'm trying different lures to see what works best for each species. Nathan nodded approvingly, then studied her face with unexpected intensity. You look tired. Everything okay? Abigail was surprised by his perception. Just a late night with Lily, teenage concerns. Ah, Nathan said, understanding immediately. About the move? The changes? Partly. She's worried about stability. Can't blame her, given her history. Nathan's expression grew thoughtful. The instability of foster care leaves marks that never quite heal. The constant fear that what you have will be taken away. The inability to fully trust or feel secure. The personal knowledge in his voice reminded Abigail of what Carmen had said about his childhood. You speak from experience. 7 homes in 6 years, Nathan confirmed, his tone matter-of-fact rather than self-pitying. You learn not to get too attached to places or people. That sounds lonely, Abigail said softly. Nathan's eyes met hers, something vulnerable flickering in their depths. It was, still is sometimes. The simple admission, offered without expectation of sympathy, touched Abigail deeply. In that moment, she glimpsed the boy beneath the successful businessman, the child who'd learned to expect disappointment, to guard against attachment, to survive alone. Before she could respond, a sharp pain shot through her abdomen, making her gasp and clutch at her belly. Abigail? Nathan was instantly alert, reaching for her arm to steady her. What's wrong? Nothing, she said automatically, then amended. As another pain gripped her. Just Braxton Hicks contractions. Practice for the real thing. Nathan looked skeptical. That didn't look like practice. How long have you been having them? On and off since last night, Abigail admitted. But they're irregular. The baby's not due for another 2 weeks. Babies don't read calendars, Nathan said dryly. Maybe we should get you back to the house. Call your doctor. I'm fine, Abigail insisted, embarrassed by the fuss. I need to finish setting up these sampling sites. Nathan's expression hardened into determination. The lake has been here for thousands of years. It can wait another day. You're going back to the house, and I'm calling Carmen to stay with you while I get the doctor. Something in his tone brooked no argument. Abigail found herself being carefully but firmly guided back toward the ranch truck he'd driven down to the lake. The children, she protested as he helped her into the passenger seat. They're at school. Lily has that science presentation today. I can't miss it. Lily will understand if her mother is in labor, Nathan said reasonably, starting the engine. And if it's a false alarm, you'll be home in plenty of time for the presentation. The contractions continued sporadically as they drove back to the foreman's house, intense enough to make Abigail grit her teeth, but still irregular. By the time they reached the house, she was willing to concede that Nathan's caution might be warranted. Carmen took one look at Abigail's face as they entered the kitchen and immediately went into action, guiding her to a comfortable chair and putting on water for tea. How far apart? She asked briskly. Irregular, Abigail answered. But strong. Carmen nodded knowingly. Call the doctor, she instructed Nathan. Then call the school. Children should know what's happening. Nathan obeyed without question, seeming relieved to have clear directions. As he stepped outside to make the calls, Carmen turned her attention fully to Abigail. First babies often take their time, she said reassuringly. But better to be prepared, yes? Abigail nodded, another contraction washing over her. This one was definitely stronger than the last. I think this might be the real thing, she admitted. Of course it is, Carmen said with the confidence of experience. Mother's body knows when it's time. By the time Nathan returned, Abigail's contractions were coming more regularly, approximately 15 minutes apart. The calm certainty in his voice as he relayed information helped steady her rising anxiety. Doctor says to time the contractions and call back when they're 5 minutes apart. School is sending the children home with my foreman's wife. And I've called the midwife from town. She's on her way as a precaution." Abigail looked up sharply. "Midwife? I'm supposed to deliver at the hospital in Millfield." "The hospital is 40 minutes away," Nathan reminded her gently. "If this progresses quickly, we might not have time. The midwife is just a precaution." The practical wisdom in this arrangement was undeniable, but it highlighted how unprepared Abigail felt. She'd planned a hospital birth with Ryan by her side, not a home delivery in a house she'd moved into just days ago. "This isn't how it was supposed to be," she whispered, fear and grief mingling as another contraction built. Nathan knelt beside her chair, his eyes level with hers. "No," he agreed simply. "It's not, but you're not alone, Abigail. You have Carmen, the midwife, me, and 7 children who adore you. Whatever happens, we'll handle it together." The certainty in his voice calmed something in Abigail's racing heart. She nodded, accepting both the reality of her situation and the support being offered. The next few hours passed in a blur of increasing discomfort. The contractions strengthened and came closer together, settling into a rhythm that left no doubt this was genuine labor. The midwife, a calm, capable woman named Sarah Jenkins, arrived and confirmed what Abigail already knew. The baby was coming, and likely sooner rather than later. "First babies usually take their time," Sarah said as she examined Abigail. "But you're already 5 centimeters dilated. This little one's in a hurry." The children arrived home from school to find the household in organized preparation for the birth. Carmen had transformed Abigail's bedroom into a birthing space, with clean sheets, extra pillows, and warm water. Nathan had called the doctor again, who was now on his way but warned he might not arrive in time. Lily immediately took charge of the younger children, explaining what was happening with a maturity that made Abigail's heart swell with pride. "Miss Abby's having the baby," she told them, gathering them in the living room away from the bustle of activity in the bedroom. "We need to be very quiet and helpful." "Can we see the baby when it comes out?" Noah asked, his eyes wide with excitement. "Not right away," Lily explained patiently. "Babies need quiet time with their moms first, but soon." As the afternoon wore on, Abigail's labor intensified. The contractions came faster and stronger, leaving her breathless and increasingly vocal. Through it all, Carmen remained by her side, offering encouragement in rapid Spanish and English, while Sarah monitored both Abigail and the baby's progress with calm efficiency. Nathan had retreated to the living room with the children, but Abigail could hear him organizing activities to keep them occupied, his deep voice reassuring as he answered their questions about what was happening. "I need to push," Abigail gasped as a particularly powerful contraction gripped her. "I need to push now." Sarah checked her quickly, then nodded. "Baby's ready. You're fully dilated. On the next contraction, go ahead and push." What followed was the most intense physical experience of Abigail's life. The pain was overwhelming, but so was the primal urge to bring her child into the world. She pushed with everything she had, drawing strength from Carmen's encouragement and Sarah's calm instructions. "I can't do this," she cried during a brief respite between contractions. "Ryan should be here. I can't do this alone." "You're not alone," Carmen reminded her fiercely. "And you are already doing it, strong woman." One more big push. With a final, tremendous effort, Abigail felt her baby slide into the world, the relief immediate and overwhelming. A lusty cry filled the room, strong and indignant. "A beautiful boy," Sarah announced, placing the squirming vernix-covered infant on Abigail's chest, perfect in every way. Tears streamed down Abigail's face as she looked into the tiny, red face of her son, Ryan's son. Their miracle. In that moment, all the fear and pain and uncertainty of the past 14 months crystallized into a single, perfect clarity. This was what she had been fighting for. This was worth every sacrifice. "Hello, little one," she whispered, touching his damp hair with trembling fingers. "I'm your mom. And you have 7 brothers and sisters waiting to meet you." As if understanding, the baby's cries softened, his unfocused eyes seeming to search for her face. The connection was immediate and profound, a love so fierce it took Abigail's breath away. "What will you call him?" Carmen asked softly, tears in her own eyes as she watched the first meeting between mother and son. Abigail smiled through her tears. Ryan Thomas Morgan. For his father." Outside the bedroom door, 7 children waited anxiously for news, cared for by a man who had once been a foster child himself, who understood better than most the value of family, of belonging, of home. And in that moment, surrounded by unlikely, all eyes and chosen family, Abigail Morgan knew with absolute certainty that they would be okay. The October sunrise painted Silvercrest, ranch in hues of gold and amber, as Abigail sat on the porch, nursing 6-week-old Ryan. The baby's tiny hand rested against her breast, his eyes, the same deep blue as his father's, fixed on her face. With what seemed like recognition, these quiet early mornings had become Abigail's sanctuary, a peaceful interlude before the joyful chaos of 7 children preparing for school erupted inside the house. Before we continue with our story, take a moment to let us know where you're watching from. If Abigail's journey has touched your heart, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow's episode reveals how one act of kindness can change everything. "You're growing so fast," Abigail whispered, stroking the baby's downy head. "Your daddy would be so proud of you." A soft footfall on the porch steps made her look up. Nathan Wade stood at the bottom of the stairs, a basket of fresh vegetables in his hands. The early morning light caught in his dark hair, highlighting strands of silver at his temples that Abigail hadn't noticed before. "Morning," he said quietly, careful not to disturb the nursing baby. "Carmen sent these from the main house garden. Said you mentioned wanting to make soup." In the week since Ryan's birth, Nathan had maintained a respectful distance, seeming to understand Abigail's need for space to bond with her newborn and help the other children adjust to their new sibling. He checked in daily but never intruded, offering support without creating dependency. "That's thoughtful." "Thank you," Abigail replied, adjusting her nursing cover as Ryan finished his meal. "Would you like to stay for coffee? The kids would love to see you before school." A genuine smile warmed Nathan's face. "I'd like that." Inside, the house was stirring to life. Lily moved efficiently in the kitchen, preparing breakfast with the confidence of someone who'd been doing it for years. The twins argued good-naturedly over whose turn it was to feed the barn cats they'd adopted. Sophie braided Mia's hair with gentle concentration, while Ethan helped Noah tie his shoes. "Nathan's here," Abigail announced as she entered with the baby and their visitor. The children's reaction was immediate and enthusiastic. They'd grown fond of the rancher who always had time for their questions, who taught the twins to ride horses on weekends, who brought Sophie new books when he went into town. "Did you bring Thunder to the pasture yet?" Jason asked eagerly, referring to his favorite of the ranch horses. "Not yet," Nathan replied, accepting the cup of coffee Lily offered. "Thought maybe you'd want to help with that after school. Can I come too?" Ethan asked, his voice still carrying the slight stutter that emerged when he was excited. "The more help, the better," Nathan assured him. "Those horses are mighty stubborn without young handlers to keep them in line." Abigail watched the interaction with a complex mixture of emotions. Nathan had integrated himself into their lives with remarkable ease, becoming something between a friend, an employer, and a father figure to the children. They looked forward to his visits, shared their accomplishments with him, sought his approval, in ways that sometimes made Abigail's heart ache with bittersweet recognition. Rain had been that person for them, the steady male presence who made them feel safe and valued. Now Nathan was inadvertently filling some of that void, and Abigail wasn't sure how to feel about it. Grateful, certainly. Cautious, definitely. And something else she wasn't ready to examine too closely. "Bus is coming," Sophie called from the window, setting off the usual flurry of activity. Backpacks grabbed, lunches checked, forgotten homework suddenly remembered. "I'll walk them out," Nathan offered, setting down his coffee cup, "if that's all right." "Of course," Abigail agreed, shifting baby Ryan to her shoulder. "I need to change this little one anyway." As the children filed out with Nathan, Abigail caught Lily hanging back, a troubled expression on her normally composed face. "Everything okay?" Abigail asked. Lily hesitated, glancing toward the door where Nathan was helping Mia with her backpack. "Can I talk to you after school?" "About something important?" The seriousness in the teenager's voice sent a flutter of concern through Abigail's chest. "Of course, I'll make sure we have some time alone." Lily nodded, relief visible in her posture. "Thanks, Miss Abby." She kissed the baby's head and hurried to join her siblings at the bus stop. Later, after the children had departed and Nathan had returned to his duties around the ranch, Abigail tried to focus on her lake management reports. The doctor had cleared her to return to light work 2 weeks ago, and she'd been gradually resuming her responsibilities, grateful for the temporary assistant Nathan had hired during her maternity leave. But Lily's request for a talk kept intruding on her concentration. The teenager had been quieter lately, more withdrawn. At first, Abigail had attributed it to the adjustment of having a new baby in the house or the challenges of a new school. Now she wondered if something more serious was troubling the girl. When the school bus dropped the children off that afternoon, Abigail was waiting on the porch. She watched as they spilled off the bus, backpacks bouncing, voices raised in conversation, and laughter. All except Lily, who trailed behind with the same troubled expression she'd worn that morning. "Lily and I need to have a private talk," Abigail told the others as they reached the house. "Carmen left snacks in the kitchen. The twins are in charge until we're done." In the small study that had become Abigail's home office, she settled into the armchair with baby Ryan cradled in one arm. Lily perched on the edge of the desk, unusually fidgety for a girl who normally carried herself with such composure. "What's on your mind, sweetheart?" Abigail prompted gently. Lily took a deep breath. "I found something about Nathan. And I don't know if I should tell you, but I think you should know." Alarm flickered through Abigail. "What do you mean? What did you find?" "I was doing research for my social studies project on local businesses," Lily explained. "And I found these articles about Nathan." She pulled several printed pages from her backpack, handing them to Abigail with reluctance. The first was a business profile from a major financial magazine, highlighting Nathan Wade's rise from foster child to cattle baron. The second was a more recent piece about his purchase of Silvercrest Ranch, describing it as the latest acquisition in Wade's growing agricultural empire. "I don't understand," Abigail said, scanning the articles. "What about these concerns?" "You?" Lily pointed to a paragraph in the second article. "This part." Abigail read aloud. "Wade's purchase of the struggling Silvercrest property follows his established pattern of acquiring undervalued rural assets, renovating them to peak condition, then selling at substantial profit. Industry insiders speculate that this property, like his previous 6 acquisitions, will be on the market within 18 to 24 months. Understanding dawned cold and clear. "You're worried he's going to sell the ranch?" Lily nodded miserably. "And if he sells, what happens to us? To your job? To our home?" The question hit Abigail with the force of a physical blow. She'd been so focused on the immediate challenges of moving, giving birth, and settling the children, that she hadn't considered the long-term implications of tying their security to Nathan's property. "I should have done more research," she admitted, angry with herself for the oversight. "But Lily, we have legal agreements. My employment contract and our housing arrangement aren't dependent on who owns the property. But what if the new owners don't want a lake manager? or don't want a family with 8 kids living in the foreman's house. Lily's voice cracked with emotion. We have to move again. Start over again. Abigail struggled to find reassurance when her own mind was racing with similar concerns. Nathan wouldn't do that to us. He knows what stability means to you all. He's a businessman, Lily argued. That's what the article says. He buys places, fixes them up, and sells them. That's what he does. Before Abigail could respond, baby Ryan began to fuss, sensing the tension in the room. She shifted him to her shoulder, patting his back soothingly while trying to organize her thoughts. I need to talk to Nathan about this, she said finally, directly. But Lily, I promise you, no matter what happens with the ranch, we will stay together. We won't lose our family. Lily's eyes filled with tears. That's what Dad said too. But then he died. The raw pain in those words broke Abigail's heart. She rose from the chair and crossed to where Lily sat, wrapping her free arm around the teenager's shoulders. Oh, sweetheart, your dad didn't choose to leave us. He would have moved heaven and earth to keep his promise if he could have. She pressed a kiss to Lily's head. And so will I, whatever it takes. After Lily had composed herself and returned to her siblings, Abigail sat in the study with the article spread before her and Ryan sleeping peacefully in his bassinet. The information shouldn't have been surprising. Of course, Nathan Wade was a businessman first and foremost. The ranch was an investment, not a sentimental purchase. Yet the revelation felt like a betrayal, though Abigail acknowledged that was unfair. Nathan had never claimed Silvercrest was his forever home or promised that their arrangement was permanent. He'd offered a job, housing, and support during a critical time in their lives. That those things might have an expiration date was a reality she should have anticipated. The sound of a truck pulling up outside broke through her troubled thoughts. Through the window, she saw Nathan stepping out of his vehicle, work-worn and dusty from a day in the fields. Something in his easy confidence, the way he moved with purpose and certainty, sparked a determination in Abigail. She wouldn't confront him with accusations or approach this as a victim. She would address it as a business matter, one professional to another, seeking clarity and, if necessary, negotiating terms that protected her family. Retrieving Ryan from his bassinet, Abigail stepped onto the porch just as Nathan was approaching, with a package under his arm. "Evening," he called, his smile genuine if tired. "Brought those water testing supplies you requested." "Thank you," Abigail replied, careful to keep her tone neutral. "Do you have a few minutes to talk?" "There's something I need to discuss with you." Something in her demeanor must have alerted him that this wasn't a casual conversation. His expression shifted to one of concern. "Of course. Everything okay?" "Let's sit," Abigail suggested, gesturing to the porch chairs. Once they were settled, baby Ryan contentedly gurgling in Abigail's lap, she decided on directness. "Nathan, I need to ask you something important, and I'd appreciate complete honesty." He nodded slowly, his gaze steady. "Always. Are you planning to sell Silvercrest Ranch?" The question clearly caught him off guard. His eyebrows rose slightly, and he was silent for a moment before responding. "What makes you ask that?" "Lily found some articles about your business practices. They suggested that Silvercrest follows a pattern of properties you purchase, improve, and then sell for profit." Abigail kept her voice matter-of-fact, determined not to sound accusatory. "It's a legitimate business strategy, but it has significant implications for my family if it's true." Nathan's expression was unreadable as he leaned back in his chair, gaze shifting to the distant pastures where cattle grazed peacefully. "Those articles aren't wrong about my past practices," he admitted finally. "I've built my wealth by recognizing undervalued properties, particularly ranches and farms that had fallen into disrepair but had good bones." Abigail felt her heart sink, but she kept her face composed. "I see, but they don't have the full picture," Nathan continued, turning back to face her directly. Silvercrest is different. How so? Nathan was quiet again, seeming to consider his words carefully. I grew up in Michigan, as you know. Foster care, bouncing between homes. When I aged out of the system, I had nothing, no family, no money, no real education. What I did have was a willingness to work harder than anyone else. Abigail listened silently, sensing this background was important to understanding his answer. I started as a ranch hand in Wyoming, saved every penny, took night classes in business and agriculture. Eventually, I scraped together enough for a down payment on a small property, 40 acres, run-down house, barely functional barn. Fixed it up myself, sold it for twice what I paid, and used that money for the next place. His voice carried no hint of boasting, just a simple recounting of facts. Each property was larger, more challenging. I developed a reputation for turning around failing ranches, and investors started approaching me with capital. The business grew. But you never stayed, Abigail observed quietly. Nathan's eyes met hers, something vulnerable flickering in their depths. I never had a reason to stay. Each place was just a project, a means to an end. And Silvercrest? Silvercrest was supposed to be the culmination, the largest property, the biggest challenge, the most satisfying profit when I eventually sold. A small smile touched his lips. And then I saw a pregnant woman fishing at dawn to feed 7 children who weren't biologically hers. The simple statement hung in the air between them, laden with meaning Abigail wasn't sure she was ready to examine. Nathan, she began, uncertain where this conversation was heading. I appreciate everything you've done for us. Truly. But my children need stability. They've experienced too much loss already. If Silvercrest is just another business project for you, I need to know so I can prepare them, and myself, for another transition. It's not, Nathan said firmly. Not anymore. What does that mean? It means I'm not selling. The certainty in his voice was absolute. I've already declined 2 very generous offers in the past month. Relief washed through Abigail, so powerful it left her momentarily speechless. But practicality quickly reasserted itself. People change their minds, she said carefully. Business opportunities arise. I need more than your word, Nathan. I need security for my children. Rather than being offended, Nathan seemed to respect her directness. What would make you feel secure? Abigail had already considered this question during her troubled reflections earlier. A long-term contract for both my position and our housing, minimum 5 years with renewal options. Provisions that would transfer to any new owner if you did sell. And she hesitated, then pushed forward. An option for us to purchase the foreman's house and surrounding 5 acres at a fair market price if we choose to. Nathan's eyebrows rose again, but this time a smile played at the corners of his mouth. You've given this some thought. I have 8 children depending on me, Abigail replied simply. I can't afford not to. All reasonable requests, Nathan acknowledged. I'll have the paperwork drawn up tomorrow. The ease of his agreement surprised Abigail. She had expected negotiation, perhaps even resistance. Just like that? Just like that, Nathan confirmed. Then, after a moment's hesitation, he added, but there's something else I'd like to discuss. Something I've been considering for a while now. Something in his tone made Abigail's pulse quicken with inexplicable nervousness. Oh? I'd like to establish a trust for the children, Nathan said, his gaze direct and unwavering. For their education and future needs. Of all the things Abigail might have expected, this wasn't one of them. A trust? I don't understand. It's simple, really. I have more money than I could spend in several lifetimes, no family to leave. It too, and a strong belief that education is the best path out of hardship. Nathan spoke matter-of-factly, as if offering to fund 8 children's futures was an everyday occurrence. Each of your children would have a fund for college or vocational. Training, whatever path they choose. Abigail stared at him, struggling to process the magnitude of what he was suggesting. That's incredibly generous, but... Why? Nathan's expression softened. Because I know what it's like to age out of foster care with no support system. No safety net. Because those 7 children have already survived more than any child should have to. Because your determination to keep them together despite impossible odds is the most courageous thing I've ever witnessed. The sincerity in his voice was unmistakable, but Abigail still hesitated. This went beyond professional assistance or neighborly support. This was something deeper, more personal. I don't know what to say, she admitted. Say you'll consider it, Nathan replied. Think about what it would mean for them, for Lily's dreams of becoming a doctor, for the twins. Interest in veterinary science, for Sophie's gift with words. Think about the opportunities they could have. Put that way, how could she refuse? Still, caution made her add, I'd need to understand the terms completely. No strings attached. No strings, Nathan confirmed. The money would be irrevocably theirs, managed by trustees until they reach maturity. You would be the primary trustee, making educational decisions in their best interests. As if sensing the importance of the moment, baby Ryan chose that instant to let out a happy gurgle, his tiny hands reaching toward Nathan with surprising determination. May I? Nathan asked, holding out his arms for the baby. Abigail transferred. Ryan carefully, watching as the burly rancher cradled her son with unexpected gentleness. The baby stared up at Nathan with wide blue eyes, then broke into a toothless smile that transformed his tiny face. Well, look at that, Nathan said softly. I think he approves of my proposal. The simple moment. A man holding a baby in the golden light of sunset stirred something in Abigail's heart that she'd believed was buried with Ryan Sr. Not romantic love, not yet, but a warm recognition of goodness, of care, of possibility. We'll consider the trust, she said finally. And Nathan, thank you. Not just for the offer, but for understanding why stability matters so much to us. His eyes met hers over the baby's head. Everyone deserves a place to belong, Abigail. A home that's truly secure. I'm just fortunate enough to be in a position to help provide that. Later that evening, after sharing Nathan's promise not to sell the ranch and his offer of educational trusts with Lily, Abigail sat in the rocking chair in baby Ryan's nursery. The infant slept peacefully in his crib, one tiny fist curled against his cheek. Through the open window came the night sounds of the ranch, crickets chirping, the occasional low of cattle, the distant hoot of an owl. Lily had received the news with cautious optimism, her practical nature preventing immediate celebration. He seems sincere, she'd admitted, and the legal contracts will help. But Miss Abby, I think there's something else going on. What? Do you mean? Abigail had asked. The way he looks at you sometimes, Lily had said thoughtfully. And at baby Ryan, it's like he's trying to figure out if he belongs with us. The teenager's perception had struck Abigail forcefully. Was that what Nathan was doing, trying to find a place to belong? Was his generosity toward her children partly a way of creating connections he'd been denied in his own turbulent childhood? And if so, how did she feel about that? The question lingered as October gave way to November, bringing the first dusting of snow to Silvercrest's rolling pastures. The additional legal documents Nathan had promised were signed and filed, providing the security Abigail had requested for her family. The educational trusts were established, with terms so generous they took Abigail's breath away when she reviewed them with the attorney. Life settled into a rhythm that felt increasingly natural. Abigail divided her time between lake management duties and caring for her growing family. The children thrived in their new school, making friends and joining activities. Baby Ryan grew stronger daily, his resemblance to his father both a comfort and an occasional ache in Abigail's heart. Nathan remained a steady presence in there. Lives respectful of boundaries but reliably available when needed. He taught the twins to ride horses properly, helped Sophie enter a writing contest she subsequently won, spent hours with Ethan overcoming his stutter through patient conversation. He never tried to replace Ryan Sr. in the children's affections, but he created his own unique relationship with each of them. With Abigail, he maintained a careful friendship that occasionally hinted at deeper possibilities. Their evening conversations on the porch became a cherished ritual, covering topics from ranch management to childhood, memories to philosophical debates about raising children in an uncertain world. It was during one such conversation, with the first serious snowfall of winter transforming Silvercrest into a wonderland of white, that Nathan finally asked the question that had been building between them. "Abigail," he began, his voice carrying an unusual note of hesitancy. "There's something I've been wanting to discuss with you." She turned from her contemplation of the snowy landscape, something in his tone making her pulse quicken. "What is it?" "I've been thinking about the future. My future, Silvercrest's future." He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. "For the first time in my life, I'm not looking at this place as a temporary investment. I'm thinking about legacy, about what remains after I'm gone." Abigail waited, sensing there was more. "The truth is, watching you with your children, seeing how you've created a family through choice and commitment, rather than biology, it's changed something in me." Nathan's gaze was steady, earnest. "It's made me want that too, a family, a purpose beyond accumulating wealth." "Nathan," Abigail began, uncertain where this was leading. "I'm not proposing marriage," he clarified quickly, a small smile touching his lips. "Not yet. That would be premature, and you're still grieving Ryan. I respect that." Relief and an unexpected twinge of disappointment mingled in Abigail's chest. "Then what are you suggesting?" "A partnership," Nathan said simply. "More formal than friendship, less binding than marriage. I want to be part of your children's lives, Abigail. I want to help raise them, support them, watch them grow. And I want you to be part of building Silvercrest's legacy." The proposal was unlike anything Abigail had anticipated, yet somehow perfectly aligned with who Nathan was, practical, direct, and genuinely caring. "What would this partnership look like?" she asked, needing to understand exactly what he was offering. "Day to day, not so different from now," Nathan explained. "You'd continue managing the lake, raising your children. I'd run the ranch operations. But we'd make major decisions together about the property, about the children's education and opportunities, about our shared future." "And what about—" Abigail hesitated, then pressed on. "What about the emotional aspect? What are your expectations?" Nathan considered the question seriously. "I care for you, Abigail. More than I expected to when I first offered you the job. I admire your strength, your dedication to your children, your intelligence. I enjoy your company and find myself thinking about you when we're apart." The simple honesty of his words touched Abigail deeply. "But I understand that love, romantic love, may not be possible for you right now, or perhaps ever again," he continued. "I'm proposing a partnership based on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine care. If deeper feelings develop over time, we can address that then." "And if they don't?" Abigail asked quietly. "Then we'll still have built something valuable together," Nathan replied without hesitation. "A secure home for your children. A purpose for my resources. A legacy that matters." Abigail gazed out at the snow-covered ranch, thinking about the journey that had brought her here. From the desperate pregnant widow fishing at dawn to feed 7 adopted children, to a woman with meaningful work, financial security, and a man offering partnership without demands or conditions. "I need time to think," she said finally. "This affects all of us, not just me." "Of course," Nathan agreed immediately. "Take all the time you need. The offer stands." As he rose to leave, Abigail caught his hand impulsively. "Nathan, thank you." for seeing value in us and me. His fingers tightened briefly around hers. You've always had value, Abigail Morgan. I just had the good fortune to recognize it. That night, as a winter storm howled around the cozy foreman's house, Abigail lay awake, considering Nathan's proposal. Outside her window, Silvercrest Ranch stretched white and pristine in the moonlight, offering her children space to grow, opportunities to thrive, and most importantly, the stability they desperately needed. The partnership Nathan suggested made practical sense. It would formalize the arrangement that was already developing naturally between them, providing additional security for her family while giving Nathan the purpose and connection he clearly sought. But what about her heart? What about the vows she'd made to Ryan, the love she still carried for him? As if in answer to her unspoken question, baby Ryan let out a small cry from his bassinet beside her bed. Abigail lifted him gently, cradling him against her chest as she had countless times before. "What would your daddy say, little one?" she whispered, stroking his downy head. "What would he want for us?" The baby gazed up at her with eyes so like his father's that it made her heart clench. But in that familiar blue, Abigail suddenly saw something she hadn't recognized before. Not just the past, but the future. Not just what was lost, but what might still be found. Ryan Sr. had loved his family fiercely. He had promised those 7 children a home, stability, and love. His greatest fear had always been failing those who depended on him. And in that moment of clarity, Abigail knew exactly what her husband would want: for his family to be safe, loved, and whole, even if he couldn't be the one to provide it. "Maybe it's time, little one," she murmured to the baby. "Maybe it's time to build something new." The February snow lay thick on Silvercrest Ranch, transforming the vast pastures into a sparkling white carpet under the winter sun. Inside the foreman's house, warmth and the scent of baking bread created a cozy sanctuary against the biting cold outside. Abigail stood at the kitchen window, cradling 4-month-old Ryan against her shoulder as she watched Nathan teaching the twins how to properly shovel the pathways without straining their backs. His patience with the boys, the way he demonstrated each movement before letting them try, spoke volumes about the man he had become in their lives over the past 6 months. Before we continue, if you're enjoying Abigail's story of courage and second chances, make sure you're subscribed and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Tomorrow's episode will reveal a challenge that threatens everything she's built. Are you really going to do it? Lily's voice came from behind her, breaking Abigail's contemplation. Abigail turned to find the teenager leaning against the doorframe, her expression a mixture of curiosity and concern. At nearly 16, Lily had grown into a young woman of remarkable insight and strength, shouldering responsibilities far beyond her years with grace that continually amazed Abigail. "The partnership with Nathan?" Abigail asked, though she knew exactly what Lily meant. "I'm still thinking about it." "It's been 3 months since he asked," Lily pointed out, coming to stand beside Abigail at the window. She took baby Ryan when he reached for her, settling him expertly against her hip. "That's a lot of thinking," Abigail smiled wryly. "It's a big decision for all of us." "We took a vote, you know," Lily said casually. "The kids, when you weren't around." This was news to Abigail. "You did what?" "We voted on whether we thought you should partner with Nathan." Lily's eyes twinkled with mischief. "Officially, I mean. Since he's basically part of our family already." "And?" Abigail asked, both amused and touched by the children's initiative. "Unanimous approval," Lily reported. "Even little Noah, who was Dad's biggest fan, said Nathan makes you smile more." The simple observation hit Abigail with unexpected force. Did she smile more? Had the healing been so gradual that she hadn't noticed her own transformation, from grief-stricken widow to a woman capable of joy again? "When did you all get so wise?" she asked, her voice thick with emotion. "Learned from you," Lily replied, echoing the words she'd said months before on moving day. You taught us that family isn't just blood, it's who shows up when things are hard. Nathan shows up, every time. Outside, Nathan was now helping the twins build what appeared to be a snow fort, his laughter visible in puffs of white breath in the cold air. Something in Abigail's chest tightened at the sight, not with grief or guilt as it once might have, but with a warm recognition of possibility. I loved your father very much, Lily, she said softly. I always will. I know, Lily assured her. We all know that, but Dad would want you to be happy. He'd want someone to take care of you the way he would have if he could. Before Abigail could respond, the back door burst open, bringing a gust of cold air and the exuberant energy of the twins, their cheeks flushed with cold and excitement. Miss Abby, Nathan says we can use the tractor to clear the big driveway, Jason announced, stomping snow from his boots. With supervision, Nathan amended, following them inside more carefully, and only this small utility tractor. The domestic scene, children excited about an adventure, a capable man setting reasonable boundaries, the baby gurgling happily in Lily's arms, struck Abigail with its simple rightness. This was what she wanted for her children. This was the family she and Ryan had dreamed of building together. That the dream now included someone he had never met didn't diminish its value or meaning. Nathan, she said, making a decision that had been months in the forming. Could we talk later? After the children are in bed? Something in her tone must have conveyed significance because his eyes sharpened with attention. Of course, I'll come by around 8. Abigail nodded, a flutter of nervous anticipation in her stomach. 8 is perfect. The rest of the day passed in a blur of normal family activity, homework supervision, meal preparation, the constant negotiation of 8 children sharing space and attention. Through it all, Abigail found herself observing her family with fresh eyes, seeing the subtle ways Nathan had already integrated himself into their lives, and the positive impact his presence had made. Sophie, once so withdrawn, she'd stopped speaking entirely after her biological parents' deaths, now chattered excitedly about the book Nathan had found for her about marine biology. Ethan, whose stutter had once been so severe he'd avoided speaking in public, proudly showed off the model airplane he and Nathan had been building together. Even little Noah, who had been closest to Ryan Sr., had developed a special bond with Nathan, who never tried to replace the boy's memories of his first daddy, but instead created new ones built on shared interests and genuine affection. By the time the younger children were tucked into bed and Lily was quietly reading in her room, Abigail had reached a state of calm certainty about her decision. When Nathan's truck pulled up outside at precisely 8 o'clock, she was waiting on the porch despite the cold, wrapped in a warm shawl and the conviction that she was making the right choice. Aren't you freezing? Nathan asked as he climbed the steps, concern evident in his voice. A little, Abigail admitted. But the stars are beautiful tonight, and I wanted a moment of quiet before we talk. Nathan settled beside her on the porch swing, his solid presence somehow both comforting and exhilarating. For a few minutes they simply sat together, watching their breath form clouds in the cold air, the vast canopy of stars spread above Silvercrest in breathtaking clarity. I've been thinking about your proposal, Abigail said finally, breaking the companionable silence. The partnership. Nathan turned slightly toward her, his expression attentive but carefully neutral. And I have some questions first, Abigail said. Things we need to be clear about before I give you my answer. Ask anything, Nathan invited, his voice steady and sure. The children will always come first for me, Abigail began. All 8 of them. Their well-being, their security, their happiness. Nothing is more important. As it should be, Nathan agreed without hesitation. If we do this, form this partnership, I need to know you understand what that means. These aren't just children I'm caring for temporarily. They're mine in every way that matters. And that includes the 7 who don't share my DNA. Abigail, Nathan said gently, one of the many things I admire about you is your capacity to love beyond boundaries. The fact that you've created a family through choice rather than biology is a strength, not a limitation. The sincerity in his voice encouraged her to continue. This partnership you're suggesting, it would impact all of us. I need to know what you envision, practically speaking. What would change? What would stay the same? Nathan considered the question thoughtfully. Practically? You and the children would remain in the foreman's house if that's what you prefer, or you could move to the main house with me if that felt right. Your role as lake manager would continue as long as you want it. The children's routines would remain stable, same schools, same activities. And your role with the children? Abigail pressed. What do you see that being? Whatever they need, Nathan replied simply. For some, that might be a father figure. For others, especially the older ones who remember Ryan clearly, perhaps more of a mentor or friend. I wouldn't try to replace their memories of your husband, but I would offer them my guidance, support, and care. His answer reassured her, but Abigail had one more critical question. And us? What do you want from our relationship, Nathan? There was a moment of silence as Nathan seemed to gather his thoughts. When he spoke, his voice carried a depth of emotion that made Abigail's heart beat faster. I want a partner, Abigail. Someone to share my life with, the challenges and the joys. Someone who sees me for who I am, not what I own. Someone who makes Silvercrest feel like a home, not just a property. He paused, then added quietly, I care for you deeply. More than I expected to, more than I've cared for anyone in a very long time. And if those feelings change? Abigail asked, needing to be absolutely certain. If this doesn't work the way we hope, then we adapt, Nathan said firmly. We communicate honestly, we make new arrangements if necessary, but we never, ever disrupt the security of your children. That's a promise I would make legally binding if it would reassure you. Abigail studied his face in the moonlight, searching for any hint of hesitation or insincerity. She found none, only openness, honesty, and a vulnerability that touched her deeply. I've made my decision, she said softly. Nathan waited, his breath visibly held. Yes, Abigail said simply. Yes to the partnership. Yes to building something together. Yes to seeing where this path leads us. The smile that transformed Nathan's face was like sunrise breaking over Silvercrest's rolling hills, warm, radiant, full of promise. He reached for her hand, his touch gentle yet sure. Thank you, he said, his voice rough with emotion, for trusting me with your family's future, for giving me a chance to be part of something that matters. Under the vast, star-filled sky, their fingers intertwined in a promise that required no formal documents or legal bindings. It was a covenant of the heart, to nurture 8 children together, to build a legacy beyond material wealth, to create a family founded on choice rather than circumstance or obligation. As they sat together on the porch swing, planning next steps and imagining possibilities, Abigail felt a sense of rightness settle in her soul. Ryan would always be her first love, the father of her youngest child, the man who had taught her the meaning of family beyond blood. But perhaps there was room in her heart for new love too, different, but equally valid, equally treasured. Spring arrived at Silvercrest in a riot of wildflowers and new life. Calves dotted the pastures, their spindly legs carrying them in playful circles around their watchful mothers. The lake thawed completely, revealing the success of Abigail's management plan in the healthy fish population that now thrived in its clear waters. In the months since Abigail had accepted Nathan's partnership proposal, changes had come gradually and naturally to their blended family. The children now spent weekends at the main ranch house with Nathan, learning about cattle operations, horseback riding, and the business of agriculture. Weekdays remained centered at the foreman's house, maintaining the routines that gave them stability and comfort. Nathan had integrated himself into their lives with patience and thoughtfulness, never pushing for more than any of them were ready to give. With Lily, he shared books on veterinary medicine, supporting her growing interest in animal care. With the twins, he spent hours teaching them to ride and care for horses. Sophie blossomed under his genuine interest and her scientific curiosity, while Ethan's stutter all but disappeared, thanks to the confidence gained through Nathan's mechanical projects. Even little Mia and Noah, initially the most cautious about this new person in their lives, now greeted him with enthusiastic hugs when he arrived. Baby Ryan, now 8 months old and crawling with determined energy, had developed a particular attachment to Nathan. The bond between them was something to behold. The tiny boy with Ryan Sr.'s blue eyes, and the man who approached fatherhood with reverent wonder. As for Abigail and Nathan, their relationship had evolved with deliberate care. Weekly date nights became treasured opportunities to know each other beyond their roles as caregivers and providers. They discovered shared values, complementary strengths, and a deepening affection that sometimes took Abigail's breath away with its unexpected intensity. They had not rushed the physical aspect of their relationship, both understanding the importance of building a foundation that could withstand the challenges of raising 8 children together. But the attraction between them was undeniable and growing stronger with each passing day. On a particularly beautiful April morning, Abigail stood at the lake's edge, conducting her weekly water testing. The surface was like glass, reflecting the brilliant blue sky and scattered clouds in perfect mirror image. In the distance, she could see Nathan's figure on horseback, moving along the fence line with the easy grace of someone born to the saddle, rather than someone who had fought for every inch of success. "Miss Abby." The call came from Lily, who was jogging down the path from the house, waving something in her hand. "You got in," she said, her voice thick with pride. "Full scholarship, including housing and meals." Lily's eyes widened in disbelief. "Really? Are you serious?" "See for yourself," Abigail said, handing over the letter. As Lily read, her expression transformed from shock to joy to something deeper, a profound recognition of possibility. This moment, this opportunity, represented everything Ryan and Abigail had hoped to provide when they'd first made the decision to keep the 7 siblings together. "I can't believe it," Lily whispered, tears gathering in her eyes. "I never thought, kids like me don't usually." "Kids like you can do anything," Abigail said firmly, pulling her into a hug. "You've earned this, Lily, every bit of it." Over Lily's shoulder, Abigail saw Nathan approaching on horseback, having spotted them from the fence line. As he drew closer, he read the scene correctly, his face breaking into a questioning smile. "She got in," Abigail called, unable to contain her excitement. "Full scholarship." Nathan swung down from his horse in one fluid motion, his pride evident in every line of his body as he joined them. "Never doubted it for a minute," he said, giving Lily a quick, supportive hug. "You're going to make an incredible veterinarian someday." "I couldn't have done it without you guys," Lily said, emotion making her voice unsteady. "Without this place, without the stability, without—" She gestured around them, encompassing Silvercrest, the lake, the life they'd built together. "You did the work," Nathan corrected gently. "We just provided the environment where you could thrive." Abigail watched the interaction with a heart so full it felt like it might burst. From desperate beginnings, a pregnant widow fishing at dawn to feed children who weren't biologically hers, they had built something remarkable. Not just survival, but genuine flourishing. Not just a makeshift arrangement, but a true family. That evening, a celebration dinner brought everyone together at the main ranch house. Carmen had outdone herself with a feast that honored Lily's achievement, complete with a cake decorated with the university's logo and the words, "Future Veterinarian," in careful icing. As they gathered around the massive dining table, Abigail looked at the faces of her family, Lily beaming with pride and excitement, The twins whispering about whether they too might go to college someday, Sophie carefully explaining the concept. Of veterinary medicine to little Noah, Ethan helping Mia cut her chicken, baby Ryan babbling happily in his high chair. And at the head of the table, Nathan watched them all with an expression of such contentment that it made Abigail's heart swell. "I'd like to make a toast," Nathan said, raising his glass once everyone was served. "To Lily, whose hard work and determination have earned her this amazing opportunity." "To Lily," the children chorused, raising their cups of sparkling cider. "And," Nathan continued, his gaze finding Abigail's across the table, "to family. To the journey that brought us all together. To the future we're building." "To family," came the enthusiastic response. Later, after the younger children were tucked into the bedrooms that had gradually accumulated their belongings over months of weekend stays, Abigail and Nathan stood on the main house's wide veranda. The spring night was mild, scented with blooming wildflowers and the promise of summer. "I have something for you," Nathan said, reaching into his pocket. "I've been waiting for the right moment." Abigail turned toward him, curiosity piqued by the unusual note of nervousness in his voice. "What is it?" Nathan withdrew a small velvet box, holding it without immediately opening it. "This isn't a proposal," he clarified quickly. "Not yet. I know we agreed to take this one step at a time. Then what is it?" Abigail asked, her pulse quickening despite herself. "A promise," Nathan said, opening the box to reveal a delicate silver pendant in the shape of a fishhook. "A reminder of how we met, of the strength I saw in you that day by the lake." The thoughtfulness of the gift, so personal, so meaningful, brought tears to Abigail's eyes. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "May I?" Nathan asked, lifting the necklace from its velvet nest. Abigail nodded, turning so he could fasten it around her neck. The pendant nestled just below her collarbone, its weight light but significant. "When I saw you fishing that morning," Nathan said, his voice low and intimate, "I recognized something in you that I'd been searching for my whole life. Not just courage or determination, though you have those in abundance. It was your capacity for love, unconditional, sacrificial love for children who needed you." His hands rested lightly on her shoulders, warm and steady. "I didn't know then that I would fall in love with you. I didn't know I was capable of the kind of love I feel now." Abigail turned to face him, her heart racing at the words he'd never explicitly spoken before. "Nathan." "I love you, Abigail Morgan," he said simply, his green eyes holding hers with unwavering certainty. "I love your strength, your kindness, your fierce protection of your family. I love the way you've opened your heart to me, despite all the reasons you had to keep it guarded." The declaration hung in the air between them, profound in its simplicity. Abigail had known, of course, had seen it in his actions, felt it in his care for her children, sensed it in the gentle way he respected her boundaries. But hearing the words aloud made them real in a new and breathtaking way. "I love you." "Too," she replied, the words rising from a place of absolute truth within her. "I didn't expect to. I didn't think I could after Ryan. But here we are." Nathan's smile was like sunrise, gradual, warming, illuminating. "Here we are," he agreed, drawing her gently into his arms. Their kiss was unhurried, a seal on promises spoken and unspoken. It carried the weight of their shared journey, from strangers to partners to this new territory of acknowledged love. It held the future they were building together, a future neither could have imagined in their separate pasts of foster care isolation and widowed desperation. When they finally parted, Abigail rested her head against Nathan's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart beneath her ear. His arms around her felt like coming home, not to a place, but to a person who saw her completely and loved her unreservedly. "What happens now?" she asked softly. Nathan's answer rumbled through his chest. "Whatever we decide, together. There's no rush, no preset path. We build this family our way, at our pace." The freedom in that answer, the respect for her autonomy and wisdom, confirmed once again that she had chosen well in this partnership. Nathan understood what she needed, not rescue or direction, but collaboration and support. "I think," Abigail said carefully, "that I'd like to start thinking about making this more official. Not immediately, but soon." "Marriage?" Nathan clarified, his voice carefully neutral. "Yes," Abigail confirmed. "The children need that stability, that certainty." "And so do I." Nathan's arms tightened around her briefly. "Whenever you're ready, I'll be here." As they stood together under the vast Texas sky, Silvercrest stretching around them in all directions, Abigail reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. From the desperate days of fishing to feed her children, to finding unexpected love with a man who valued her strength rather than seeing her vulnerability as weakness. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "when Ryan died, I thought my capacity for joy died with him. I was focused on survival, just getting through each day, keeping the children fed and together. I never imagined I could feel happiness again, let alone love." "And now?" Nathan prompted gently. Abigail lifted her face to his, letting him see the truth in her eyes. "Now I understand that the heart is more resilient than we give it credit. 4. That love isn't a limited resource that gets used up, but an expanding force that grows with each person we welcome into our lives." Nathan touched the fishhook pendant at her throat, the symbol of where their story began. "From that first morning when I saw you on the lake, I knew you were exceptional. But I had no idea how completely you would transform my life, my understanding of family, my vision for this ranch." "We transformed each other," Abigail corrected softly. "That's what real partnership means." Inside the ranch house, baby Ryan let out a cry that carried through the open window. Without discussion, they both turned toward the sound, moving with the instinctive response of parents attuned to their child's needs. As they walked hand in hand back into the warmth of the house, their family, their shared future, Abigail felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over her. Life had taken her on an unexpected journey, from unimaginable loss to unanticipated joy. The path hadn't been easy or straightforward, but standing here now, she wouldn't change. Single step. The pregnant widow who had once fished at dawn to feed orphan children had found not just security for her family, but a love that honored her past while embracing her future. A love born not from desperate need, but from mutual respect and admiration. A love that, like the vast Texas sky above Silvercrest Ranch, held infinite possibility and enduring promise. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.